Hey guys, and welcome to a new episode of Creative Corner. It's been far too long since the last episode, but I'm back. Today I am here with my good friend and person extraordinaire, I guess you could say, extraordinary person, Lauren Shields. But thank you for joining me for this episode, Lauren. I know we've been trying to get this done for quite a while, and I'm pretty happy that we can actually get this done.
Yeah,
But
too. Yeah.
I think, like I talked to everyone, we have quite a few things to talk to Lauren about because she is, like I said, she's quite the extraordinary person and has quite the creative side. But first, what we'll talk about is, and especially what I really want to talk about, is your experience blogging and going about what you called the Modesty Experiment while we were in seminary. And why don't you give everyone a brief explanation of maybe why you did it and how you came about it, and
Mhm.
we'll go from
Okay.
there. And just explain to them what it was.
Okay. So the Modesty Experiment was, and it was sort of a self-titled thing, was a 9-month period in my first year of seminary at Emory, where I covered my hair, my arms, and my legs, and I stopped wearing makeup and nail polish. And what inspired me to do that was learning about women in Islam who Western Muslimas who cover with the headscarf. You see them on the street and stuff. Generally, what I learned was that generally they chose to cover, and I thought, well, that's weird because I thought that covering was really oppressive and a terrible thing to do to
Yeah.
women and stuff. And what I learned was that I had a very monolithic view of what female empowerment looked like. I thought that you had to look fabulous in order to be empowered, which is obviously my mistake. But what really drove it home was learning about religious modesty and learning that a lot of the women who chose to cover did it because they felt more liberated that way. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? So I decided to try it for myself. And they were right. At least in the West, it is very liberating to make a conscious choice to put down. At least it was for me to put down my commitment to my appearance as my primary way to get people to listen to me.
Yeah.
So
I remember when you were first going about the Modesty Experiment. I know like you said, the primary influence was the hijab and Muslim with Muslim women in Islam. Did you? I think I remember you mentioning some influence from Judaism and other religions.
yep, yeah, sure. I was also influenced by a lot of the Orthodox Jewish women that I saw in Brooklyn before I came to Atlanta. Because they had the married women covered their hair, and they were always covered, but they always looked fabulous. And here I am going to and from work in these ridiculous high heels and skirts, and my hair is looking perfect, and my makeup is looking perfect because I worked on Fifth Avenue, so everybody wore that costume. And so yeah, I was inspired by Judaism a lot as well. Um, Christianity I had a little bit more trouble with just because it's so bound up with the purity movement.
Yeah.
That made me kind of go, oh, I'm not sure I want to really even touch that. But eventually, I studied it a little bit. The Amish are really interesting, and the Church of Latter-day Saints have modesty guidelines as well. So
I know it only started out as a personal journey,
yeah.
um, but it seemed to become much more once people caught wind of it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and it swept up in just seeing you on the front page of yahoo.com and Yahoo News. And
That was weird. That was super weird.
you did a couple national morning shows, did you not?
They called me,
Okay.
but eventually they decided not to go with it. It was the Fourth of July weekend, so they didn't
Ah.
want to do an interview with a lady who was like, "Islam is not terrible on the Fourth of July weekend." Not a good idea.
Could you imagine what Fox News would do if
Oh,
they got a hold of that?
I can't even imagine. It would have been a disaster.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what one thing I definitely like to speak about is I know we met. I think it was and was at Chris and Leah's, I
Mhm.
believe. For those that don't know, Chris and Leah are a good friend of ours from seminary, and they started a house church, and that's where Lauren and I met. But there was, from the little I knew of you, about you, from when we first met to when you finished the Modesty Experiment, and we had become closer friends. I noticed a significant change in your outlook
Mm.
on. I even noticed a greater confidence in yourself, a different view of definitions, I guess, of beauty, of how women are defined as beautiful or not beautiful. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, the point of the experiment for me personally was to loosen my death grip on the idea that my worth was dependent on the way that I looked.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how committed I was to that idea until I neared 30, and it became harder to keep weight off and stuff. And I shouldn't really have cared about that because I said I didn't care, but I really super cared. I mean, I really cared. It kept me up at night. Um, so during the course of the modesty experiment, initially for the first month or so, it was really hard because I was like, oh my God, everybody's looking at me and thinking I'm ugly and I'm disgusting and nobody wants to look at me. But then after the first month, I noticed that nobody was really treating me any differently. It was kind of all in my head. Um, I don't know if my definitions of beauty changed. It was more like that it was nowhere near as important as I thought it was to constantly be on my appearance game.
Yeah.
Other people did not care. It was vanity, really. It was just believing that everybody was staring at me and going, "What's she going to do with her eyebrows today?" Nobody cares. So
Could have your experience and what you learned from the Modesty Experience then maybe helped you realize that perhaps the vanity in makeup was some kind of mask or something to hide behind? Because I know when I have dealt with my depression and my insecurity, some guys may be different. I hide behind a beard and long hair,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I don't. Do you understand where I'm
I
going
do.
with that?
I do. I do. I think it varies from woman to woman. For me, it was definitely a mask. It was something that I used to make myself feel more worthwhile. It was an easy way to feel worthwhile and accomplished, which I know sounds really twisted and weird, but I, from talking to a lot of women, it's not unusual to view makeup that way. And it's not always a mask. A lot of women wear makeup uh, because it makes them feel genuinely good. Makeup is not an inherently oppressive or dishonest way to move through the world. It really comes down to the individual woman. But yeah, for me, it was a mask. Absolutely.
So now the Modesty Experiment has moved from a blog
Hmm.
to a full-on
Book.
book.
Yes.
How did that come about?
I wrote the article for Salon in
That's
2013.
right.
That was sort of my big break. I wasn't expecting all this to happen. I just wanted 150 bucks. That was it. And I was like, okay, great, and I'm done. But so I wrote the article for Salon, and I was contacted by some agents who had read my blog and had seen that I was thinking about writing a book, and they were like, "Hey, are you writing a book? Do you need representation?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So let me think. Although, no, you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, my first agent, the very first one that I had in 2012, that was right after I finished the experiment, before I wrote the Salon article, was a literary agent for someone who had written an article for the Emory Alumni newsletter
Okay.
about me. And she got me in touch with her agent, and I worked with her agent for a little while. But then her agent got pregnant and had to shuffle some projects around. So, so I found my second and third agents after writing for Salon and putting feelers out there saying, "Hey, I'm writing a book and I need some representation." So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, have they? How are you expanding upon this? Because I can't imagine just talking about not that talking about the 9 month experience isn't important, but
Yeah, but there's
yeah,
not
it's
material there.
yeah. There's not enough material. How are they having you expand upon in your experience or any other discussion being added
Yeah.
to the book?
Well, it's been a process of figuring out how to turn it into a book, because initially I went the memoir route. I went the Orange is the New Black
Hmm.
route, and but like we said, there just wasn't enough material. I mean, after the first month, I was like, all right, I feel good, cool. But I think what a book needs is like a lot of conflict and crazy. There needs to be a lot more there. So I
Yeah.
went into my second attempt at the book, which I started about this time last year, actually, was about the intersection of covering one's body and modern feminism, like whether or not they could work together. Because there's a big movement in feminism that's been kind of in vogue over the last 20 years or so, where like Girls Gone Wild is liberating, and burlesque is liberating, and Beyonce is like, she's the quintessential feminist, but she's always half naked, like all the time.
Yeah.
When she's in front of a feminist sign, she's half naked. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, with being proud of your body and being, strong in that respect.
Yeah.
But the way that we've paired it with, oh, these poor Muslim women are being forced to cover their heads, therefore they're oppressed. These Christian women cover themselves, therefore they're oppressed. We've created this weird dichotomy where, in order to be liberated, you have to be willing to sexualize yourself. If you don't self-sexualize, then you're repressed. And that leaves very little wiggle room for self-expression for women who particularly feel comfortable doing that. So I've expanded the book out into those themes, and I've looked at it through the lenses of the three Abrahamic religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Okay.
Um, so that's what I'm doing. So
Can you? Would it spoil the book too much to maybe discuss your take on that intersection? Um,
uh,
or can you? Do you have to keep it under wraps?
I think it's let me think. Could I discuss my take on that? I don't know if I could give you a short answer about that. It would have to be here's what Christianity says about
Touche.
liberation. Here's why. Here's what it would take a really long time. So
Yeah, that's why I haven't done any videos on the intersection of Howard Thurman sounded genuine in Hook. So
yeah,
that
right.
would take
Yeah,
forever.
forever. Yeah.
But then in that case, I don't know if this is an area you want to delve into, but your take and your experience of the Modesty Experiment, and I don't know if this is a little too late, but the hubbub with Gamergate and social justice warriors and all of that, and just I'm slut shaming of women in media and on Twitter and all that. I hate to use such an abrasive
No, I
term.
use it. I use it in my book. I know what
Okay.
you. Well, it's been my big break on Salon was the best and worst thing that ever happened to the project, because it got it a lot of exposure. Um, but I was not prepared for the way that women are treated on the internet. And I was not prepared for anybody to have a problem with what I did.
Hmm.
And a lot of people had a problem with what I did, especially women. Especially like Jezebel had a problem with it. XO Jane had a problem with it. They made fun of me, which I guess it's your right to do that. But frankly, it was really really hurtful, because I was like, I'm really trying to make things better for women, and the people who are telling me to sit down and shut up are women.
Wow.
And there's just it's not a case of men versus women. It's a case of, we live in a culture where, especially on the internet, there's a lot of imperative to be right, and there's a lot of imperative to be the most moral voice in the conversation. And the best way that you can do that is to find somebody who says, I have something to say and I feel really passionately about this, and I feel like I have some moral standing, which I did feel that way, and just shut them down and make fun of them and make it really personal. And I wasn't slut shamed, but there were a lot of comments about my attractiveness on the Salon article, which, even though they were positive, still kind of not the point.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't know. I writing the book and continuing to do this project has been really, frankly, it's been really excruciating because I'm very, very shy and I don't like a lot of attention, and I also can't control what people say about me in public.
Yeah.
And coming out and saying something controversial about liberation or about feminism, um, you're gonna get insulted. People are gonna come after you. Um, and I don't know if it's an internet age thing or what, but I do know that I'm not the only feminist writer who kind of wants to give up
Yeah.
because it's just not worth it. It's not, every time you say something that's really deeply true to you, millions of people stand up and go, "Shut up, screw you," and it's difficult. It's much worse than having a personal conversation or even giving a talk where people ask you questions, you know?
See, I can while I am not doing anything quite as important as your work, um, I can understand that because I have made a I'm a I'll preface this with I'm a huge fan of the reality show King of the Nerds. That's how big part of how I got into my blogging and my YouTubing. And there was in this previous season a lot of that negative treatment of women happened in the direction of some of the female contestants because were very strong and assertive women, and men had a negative response to that,
Mm-hmm.
and especially on 4chan as
Oh, 4chan.
or Reddit as they. I'm not going to say all of Reddit is bad, but there seems to be a trend. But I put up a video that was in defense of the women, and I got some negative response also, and it seems like no matter what, if you put out an opinion, people, like you said, are going to be in opposition of it.
Yeah.
Just to be in opposition of it sometimes. But in the
Yeah.
case of your work and your writing, I can understand how the cacophony of negativity can get in the way, but I believe that writing something that is deeply there's something very important about writing something that's deeply meaningful to you because in that actual process that meaning is etched into your soul
Mm.
and it becomes part of you and informs you, but also you never know who it's going to impact.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've heard that already, but I'm going to say that there could be someone out there that reads your work that even in all of the negative voices there's going to be that one resounding positive voice whose life was changed and impacted by your work.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
There's 6 billion, was it 6 billion people in the world, 7 billion. I'm sure at least maybe 1,000.
Yeah, somebody is gonna benefit from this work. I hope.
But I'm someone will.
Yeah.
Someone will. I certainly believe that.
Good. Well, thank you.
But to move on from, I could sit here and talk for hours about the Modesty Experiment if we could, because I believe it's, like I said, the work is important. But there's definitely more to Lauren Shields and her creativity. We've talked about a lot about our love for writing and how important it is to both of us,
Uh-huh.
and all that. As an author, who has influenced you the most?
Influenced me. Well, I want to say that for me, writing, to be honest, it's not that I love the process.
The
Um,
process sucks.
the process is terrible. It's misery making. For me, writing is a way of connecting to people, and it's a way of saying something that needs to be said that you can't say in conversation or on
Yeah.
a blog post. So that's why I write. The people who have influenced me, so in terms of the people who really inspired me to do this project, there's Joseph Campbell, Ariel Levy, Jessica Valenti. Um, who else? Let me look at my bookshelf here.
I'll, I'll,
Who else? Uh, yeah, and I mean, I hate to be stereotypical and lean on these people, but Betty Friedan totally blew my mind when I first read her. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And also, Naomi Wolf, also very inspirational for me. Even though their work is older, but I feel like their themes still really resonate. For pleasure, I read Stephen King like a crazy person.
yes.
Even though, like, I know I read it in part because it's just he creates a world in such a way that you can sink into the world, you
That's
know?
why he's always been one of my favorite authors. Not even his horror, but um,
He's great.
11/22/63.
Is that good, really?
It's one of my. It's I think it's one of his best,
Oh, wow.
and some of his best character development, um, along with Bag of Bones and Under the Dome is phenomenal.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
his newest series, the Mr. Mercedes
Yeah, yeah.
series,
Uh-huh.
are it's not his. I wouldn't say it's his best overall work, but it's some of his most intriguing characters and more um, realistic characters.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
God, he's so good.
he is. Well, I mean, I mean, there's a lot of passages where you're like, why are we still talking about this? Like, but I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
Kind of don't care. It's still fun to read. So,
Apparently, the movie adaptation of the Dark Tower series is back on. I
ooh,
can't
I would
remember who the new director is, but
yeah. Oh, I hope it's good. I love that series.
apparently it
Love
was
that series.
Ben Affleck was gonna direct it, and then that changed. But anyways, from writing on to music,
Yes.
one of the things about you that blew me away was when I found out that you play the washboard.
Yeah, it's true. I do. In
How
fact,
did
I have it right here.
yes? I have a good friend. I'm gonna give her a shout out, Evie, or Eve Allen. She plays the ukulele. That'd be an interesting get together. You on
Yeah,
washboard and her on ukulele.
yeah.
But how did that come about?
Well, it came about because I am a kind of a lifelong musician. I've been singing my whole life, and I played the oboe for many years. And I also, you know this about me, I like to swing dance.
Yeah.
And there was this little tiny hole in the wall bar called Northside Tavern in Atlanta, and they had live music every Wednesday night. And this one guitarist kind of sits on stage and just plays blues and sings. And sometimes he has a percussionist, and sometimes he has a harmonica, and sometimes he doesn't. But I would go with my friends to dance to this place. And then one night there was just a washboard leaning up against the wall, and it was late, and there was nobody there. And the guitarist was changing his string and singing at the same time. And I stopped dancing and I started harmonizing with him. And he went, "Oh, okay." Well, he kind of like he motioned to me to come up next to him, and I harmonized with him for the rest of the song. And he goes, "Why don't you pull up a chair?" And I was like, "Okay, let's do that." And so I sang with him for a couple of songs. He sort of fed me lyrics to sing or whatever. And then I pointed at the washboard and I went, "Hey, can I give that a try?" And he was like, "Yeah, totally." So I put the washboard around my neck and I grabbed some spoons and I started playing, and that was it.
And the rest was music history.
And the rest was music history. Washboard is it's a really simple percussion instrument, but it's unusual. So a lot of people are like, "Wow, how did you pick that up?" It's if you have a for me, my background in music made it real simple for me to just pick it up. So
That's just I find the simplest instruments like the washboard so intriguing for some reason. There's barely a music bone in me, and that's one thing I wish I could do. I tried clarinet, I tried violin, but
mm,
maybe I'll pick up the washboard and see what I can do.
it's certainly easier than clarinet and violin. I'll tell you that much.
So something that's actually re-entered your life in working in post production,
Hmm.
and that was, as far as I remember, your career before coming to Atlanta.
It was.
What was that career like? What was your experience? in post production. We're I don't know if I can't remember if we ever talked about this. Was it specifically movies or television commercials, or were you just
Well, so I worked for WFSU TV right after film school, which was sort of production. It was really more archive. I was in the tapes department, so I recorded everything and kept a library and everything. And I gripped on a lot of the short features that they did. So that was television.
yeah?
The stuff that I did in New York were short films. I worked on a short for Quinnipiac University, and I did a 48-hour film project. But my experience in the industry in New York was such that I never had I never had consistent work. I applied for so many jobs, it just blew my mind. But I started off with internships, like thinking that internships were kind of a stepping stone. But maybe this is how it is in all industries, or maybe it's just a New York film industry thing. But internships were not stepping stones; they were just an endless supply of like free labor for kids that had other sources of income and wanted to get experience or whatever. So my experience in the film and television industry, it's kind of limited. I never had like a year or five or whatever of just doing post. In large part because I was in New York in 2007, 2008, 2009, which was right when the recession hit. So there was no work for anybody, much less people in the arts. So
Now, I know this is probably a bit of a cliche question, but it's one that fascinates me, and that's, um, I guess I gotta say, the moment that I knew I wanted to be a screenwriter and I wanted to write was sitting in movies like Forrest Gump
mm.
and just movies. I know it's hard to pinpoint, but was there a particular movie or director or a bit of cinematography that was like for you that was this is what I want to do, this is what I need to do?
well, I was always really into movies. I think what happened was when I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actress because I saw Labyrinth when I was 5. And I decided that I had to be an actress. What I didn't realize is that being an actress is very different from telling stories via film. It's completely different. Because I was an actress, I went back to acting in films when I was in undergrad, and I was in 9 or 10 short student films, and I was like, this isn't quite what I was looking for. So I applied to the film school and I got in. But it's really not one particular movie, or if I had to point to one sort of subset of film, it would be Pixar's work. And the reason for that is that they tell these really clean, uncomplicated, very emotionally resonant stories, and that's all they do. And I think that's so rare in modern cinema that you just have a story about a dad who loses a son and has to go find him. Done. There's just all this extra crap that they put on top of it, and I love Pixar's ability to consistently emotionally connect with their audiences. So yeah, I mean they're up in Emeryville, and I wish I could get a job there, but Emeryville is a little bit too far away. So
The last thing, and this the improv group that you are in,
yeah,
and how long have you been in that for now? I know that's more of a recent thing.
it's very recent. I've been in it for about a year.
What pulled you towards improv?
Well, I grew up on the south side of Chicago in the suburbs, so I grew up sort of with a lot of that in the air in some ways. But I used to love Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes.
And watched it all the time. And then when we moved out to California, I'm sure you know this, once you're not in school, it's really hard to make friends
It
with
is.
not crazy people. It's very hard. So I was like, you know what? Whatever. I met a random person who was like, oh yeah, we're all in improv together and it's really fun. I was like, I should do that. So I went and I signed up for an improv class, and I started with level 1, and I went up through a couple of levels, and then the director of the program emailed me and said, hey, do you want to be a part of the main stage cast? And I was like, yes, I do. So here I am.
How was that? has it helped in improving anything in your writing or your acting or
Yes. Oh my God, has improved. Okay, so it improved my confidence overall because I kind of can't believe that I can get up and make up songs that people will like. It's a huge confidence booster when you're able just to do that, and all it requires is a choice to, okay, the scene is starting. I'm going to move my feet and go up the stairs. That's all I'm going to do, and then something is going to come out of my mouth, and you'll surprise yourself. The way it's helped my writing is that improv, and I think maybe the improv group that I'm with is really big on failing big. That's the sort of tagline is fail
okay?
big. If you're gonna fail, fail big. Don't half-ass it and kind of go, oh, I'm not really sure if this choice is really any good. If you're gonna bomb, bomb.
Awesome.
And it happens all the time. Um, but it made me improv um, lessened my fear of failure because I realized that no matter how many times I fail, I can still make the choice to start again. It's never going to
Yeah.
stop. Failure doesn't actually stop you unless you let it stop you. And I had heard that and I had, understood it in a Barney sort of way. But I didn't really get it until I watched myself fail again and again and again and again and again and again and again, and I still did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
So
exactly what you mean.
yeah, yeah. So, and writing is that way. Writing is 90% of what you create is unusable.
Mm-hmm.
It's just unusable, but you have to get through that 90% in order to get to that 10% that you can use. So,
I'm curious to know what's been your, I don't know, your favorite or your best moment while on stage. The moment that got the best crowd reaction.
it was when I was first, when it was during my level 2 show. So there's like level 1, level 2, 3, and there's I think 2 more levels after that, and you can just stay in those top 2 levels. It was my level 2 show. Um, I we were doing a really fast-paced game, and there's another player that I really play well with, and she and I actually got called up to the main stage at the same time.
Oh wow.
But I set her up to make this joke, and somehow she saw exactly where I was going, and she responded exactly the way I was hoping she would respond, and the audience lost it. And she and I just looked at each other like, "Did you see what we just did? We just did like a joke. It was amazing." So it was, and it was just really, it was genuine laughter. It was really truly making people laugh, and making people laugh is so hard.
It is.
It's really hard to make people laugh, especially when they're expecting you to be really really good at it. So that was kind of the first moment where I was like, "Wow, this is pretty awesome." So
This is. I think making someone laugh is one of the most rewarding feelings because I've had people look over scripts and things I've written. I'm like, I think this is absolutely funny and hilarious, and I'm like, what if no one finds it funny? And
yeah,
then everyone loves it. So it's just
yeah,
it's. I think it's easier to write something impactful or deep than it is to make someone laugh. I don't know
yes. No, I
because,
would totally agree with you. Yeah.
but well, now for my favorite part of every episode, I am going to go through kind of a lightning round of questions for
Okay.
you. You got to answer as quickly as you can, and the
All
first
right.
thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
Favorite Stephen King book.
Uh, oh, first thing that comes to mind is it, actually.
Oh, that is what made me terrified of clowns.
Yeah,
Ugh. Ugh.
I know.
Favorite movie.
Labyrinth.
Classic movie. Your guilty pleasure movie.
Guilty pleasure movie. Mean Girls.
Favorite Pixar movie.
Finding Nemo.
Favorite improv game.
It's a game called Five Things.
How does that work?
One player leaves the room, and the ref gets suggestions from the audience about 5 things that the player is doing. And the player will be, say, water skiing, but instead of skis, he's on hamsters, and instead of water, it's spaghetti sauce. And there are 5, so a total of 15 different things that this person has to guess. They have 4 minutes to guess the things, and their teammates have to give them clues without using English. So they have to just babble and use pantomime, and you'd be amazed how often we're actually able to get what the suggestions are. It's really, really fun, but it's very hard. It's very hard. Yeah.
The worst you've ever bombed on stage?
Ooh, it was pretty recent. I had a show not this last week, but 2 weeks ago, where the crowd was really small, and they were just not very vocal, and they were just kind of not into it. And I can't remember any specific moments, but I remember thinking, I'm just up here talking, and I don't know where this scene is going, and the crowd is silent. And please, ref, blow the whistle, because I just want this to be over.
Favorite Firefly character?
Ooh, Inara.
Favorite Joss Whedon character?
Favorite Joss Whedon character? Yeah, I think I'm not as well versed in the Joss Whedon verse as I would like to be. So I think I'm gonna no, River.
Yes.
I love me some River. She is scary and awesome at the same time.
Then let me think. What else?
Picard is better than Kirk, in case you're wondering.
That was actually one of the next questions. Picard or Cook? But thank you for joining me, Lauren.
Sure.
It was a pleasure. Guys, if you liked the video, make sure to press that like button, share it with people, and for more content from me and to keep up to date, hit that subscribe button. But thank you all, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you start seeing like recurring people showing up here and there. It's super cool.
Dylan's a superstar.
Oh, stop it! No.
Just don't turn into a diva.
Oh, too late. Already.
I was gonna say, it probably is too late.
No.
But